The protagonist of our story is not just an ordinary unlucky person. The miserable way in which he died wasn't enough. He then found himself in a place where the spirits of great warriors gather across the ages. Considering he was just a professional gamer, he had no idea what brought him to a place like this. Yet, this moment was the beginning of everything. Taeho is one of the top players in the world. He is widely known and has many fans, as he achieved first place in the last 2 gaming tournaments, and today he is on his way to winning the 3rd. Suddenly he finds himself standing among large individuals who appear to be veteran warriors. They are at a large gate, and all these people are standing in front of it. 2 warriors look at Tae, one commenting on his strange name, the other noting his odd clothes and small size, and they agree. One notices that the man next to him is the one he killed, and the other is surprised it is indeed him. They stand facing each other as if about to fight. Tae stands frightened, wondering if they are enemies about to fight. Their eyes start to spark, but suddenly they laugh, and the killer says he is here because of the other, who replies that the fight was intense. The slain man asks if his presence means he died soon after. The killer explains that after killing him, a boy with 5 braids attacked and killed him, striking him in the stomach while shouting "Father." The slain man says it was his son, Vior, and is happy his son avenged him. The other tells him his son will be a strong warrior and affirms that he already is. Tae stands bewildered by what is happening, not knowing how he ended up in this strange place. We are taken back to earlier events, where Tae was in a competition, about to become world champion for the 3rd time, when he suddenly fell onto the keyboard. Tae wonders if he truly died at that moment, and if what he is experiencing now is just a dream. At that moment, a girl points at him, saying he was a champion who won many duels. The other warriors are astonished at his small size while being the king of duels and wish to fight him, even once. Tae stands, not understanding what is happening, and says it is all because of that girl. He recalls falling on the keyboard and dying, finding himself in a spiritual form outside his body. He saw a strange light, and suddenly, the girl appeared, telling him those who lose their lives in glorious battle possess the spirit of a warrior. Tae asked if he truly died, and she asked him to come with her. He asked if she would take him to hell. The girl took his hand, and they flew together, heading to Valhalla, disappearing into the light. Back in the present, Tae thinks about Valhalla, a place beyond death in Norse mythology, accessible only by warriors, and he says he learned this from the games he played. He believes the girl made a mistake, thinking he was a great warrior, which was evident from her naive expression. He tells her he is not a real warrior, but just a professional player. She asks in confusion, "Games?" and wonders if he means duels. He denies it, and asks her to take him back. At that moment, a large horn sounds, and the girl tells him it is the enemy, shouting for everyone to prepare for battle. At that moment, the warrior's eyes were sparking, ready for battle, but Tae was terrified, feeling he was going insane. The enemies attacked, revealing huge, ferocious beasts. The warriors blocked their way, and the battle was intense. Tae stood away, scared and unsure, thinking it was madness. He held a sword, unsure of what to do, as he'd never held one before. He thought about being here because he died and wondered what would happen if he died again. At that moment, a huge beast stood before him. The beast struck quickly, but a warrior rushed in, telling Tae to duck, then struck the beast with the deep rage technique, saving Tae, who covered his ears in fear. The warrior asked if Tae knew about a saga, but Tae had no idea. The warrior said being in Valhalla meant he had notable achievements in life, and these were the source of his power. The more famous the achievements, the stronger he would be. Tae doubted he had any, remembering all he did was eat and play games. Then he remembered something, the character he played, the immortal warrior Karlstad and his achievements. As he thought of those achievements, a halo of light appeared, and he began to float, looking confused. The warrior told him he had his own saga and could see glowing letters. Tae said he could see them but not make out the shapes. He could only read the letters, as if through a translator. The text read, "Saga of the Immortal Warrior, with 1% power." Tae walked with the warrior, thinking that Immortal Warrior referred to Karlstad, and if he could use Karlstad's power, he would be the strongest. Suddenly the warrior told him to look ahead, and Tae asked what was there. He saw an enemy beast. The beast attacked with a large hammer. Tae fell, lost his sword, and rolled until he could stabilize himself. He stood, thinking Karlstad's power couldn't be this weak. Seeing the beast preparing to strike again, Tae thought Karlstad could easily defeat such a beast, and wondered if something was wrong with his saga. He looked at the text again, seeing the 1% written in very small font. He was puzzled and shouted, "Why is it so small like an insurance policy? Why not bigger?" The warrior laughed, telling him he was amusing. He said this was all he could help with, but the saga wouldn't end here, and Tae had to continue his story. The warrior left, saying his name was Bjorn, and told Tae to stay alive until they met again. At that moment, the beast stood before Tae. Tae thought his power was only 1% of Karlstad's. Seeing the fallen sword, he said even if it was 1%, it was enough. Tae rushed toward the sword, thinking about how Karlstad was a superhuman, capable of facing 100 soldiers alone. He managed to grab the sword, thinking of this as he faced the giant beast, imagining how to create his own legend using Karlstad's power. At that moment, the beast swung its hammer, but Tae dodged and quickly slipped underneath. He remembered the cheers of fans from the tournaments he used to win, and saw Karlstad's image in his mind. His saga activated, granting him the power of the storm, enabling him to charge through the enemy like a real storm. Tae felt like a version of Karlstad, with storm-like light shining from his eyes, and his saga's power increased, granting him a warrior's strength akin to a storm. He moved quickly, managing to kill the attacking beast. In that moment, he wondered if this could be a new saga added due to his thoughts about Karlstad's achievements, and if this new power might boost his speed. He thought that with this power, he was now in a good position, and could definitely survive. The scene shifted to the gate where the warriors were gathered. Inside, the warriors celebrated their survival and victory over the enemy. The 2 warriors who had fought in their past lives sat together, celebrating their survival. One told the other he survived the battle, and the other replied, it was just a warm-up. cup. Tae sat at a table in front of them, struggling to eat a piece of meat, wondering if this was really the feast for the night. He said all they offered was this drink and meat, adding that he would die of hunger, so he'd eat it, though he was still unsatisfied. Bjorn, sitting across from him, replied that if Tai wanted better food, he needed to raise his rank as a warrior. He explained that this was the feast hall for beginners and lower-ranked warriors, which was why the food and drink were simple. Tai asked if Bjorn was also a low-ranked warrior, and Bjorn laughed, saying he was only there to check on him. Tai thanked him, saying he survived today thanks to Bjorn, and appreciated what he did. He added that without understanding the saga, then asked, by the way, what happens if he dies here? Bjorn answered that souls who die here are sent to the Iron Warrior, where they feel no pain or hunger and can fight forever, saying it was wonderful, though Tai was terrified by the thought, thinking it was more like an iron coffin, and vowed never to die here. Bjorn then told him that soon he would be assigned to a unit, and Tai asked what that meant. Bjorn replied that the assignments would begin now. Another person arrived, standing before the warriors, announcing she had seen their performance, and would now assign them to their units. Seeing her, Tai said, that's a Valkyrie. Bjorn replied, that's Regan, daughter of Odin, from a noble lineage. Then we see Regan raise her sword enthusiastically, asking the warriors to look into their cups, where they will see the name of the one to whom they will pledge allegiance. Bjorn explained to Tai that everyone would be assigned to one of the Asgardian gods' teams, and Tai would gain additional power from the god whose team he joined. Tai thought the only Asgardian gods he knew were Odin and Thor, and he hoped that if he were to gain power, it would be from the strongest god possible. He looked into his cup, wishing for the name to be Odin or Thor. The image that appeared for Tai was that of a beautiful girl, and then we see them on a small boat sailing down a river, with her rowing. Tai seemed very upset, thinking they said the teams were those of the gods, and felt frustrated by his luck, wondering why this happened to him. The girl with him asked why he had been acting this way since the beginning, while Tai thought he was alone, with no one else in this team. But the girl reassured him, telling him not to worry, that their team had strengths that could stand against the others. Tai asked what she meant, and she explained that no one above them could bother them, and no one below could cause them trouble, laughing as she said this was truly paradise. Tai asked if there was no one else here, in Team Idun, recalling when he found the name in his cup. While everyone around him celebrated finding the names Thor or Odin, he was the only one who saw Idun, and at that moment Bjorn told him he'd never heard that name before. Tai gave him a worried look, and Bjorn returned a sad gaze, telling him to stay strong. Tai thought about Bjorn's look, not understanding it, as if he was trying to comfort him. Then each team leader began calling out the warriors who joined their team. The warriors stood in lines before them, with a large number in each team, but Tai stood unsure who would take him to Team Idun. At that moment, he saw a red-haired girl sitting, announcing Team Odin, and she looked sad as she hadn't found anyone for her team. Tai approached her. When he told her he had now joined Team Odin, she couldn't believe it, rejoicing and saying he was the first newcomer in a very long time. She came closer, telling him they hadn't had a new young member like him for years, and Tai looked tense, unable to catch his breath due to her closeness. The girl welcomed him, introducing herself as Hilda. Back on the boat in the present, Hilda looked at Tai, not understanding what he was thinking about. Tai asked her what exactly they were fighting for in their team and why, and Hilda told him she would explain everything. She showed him an image, explaining that their world was like this picture, telling him they were in Asgard and showing their exact location, and that beyond this place was a realm called Muspelheim, home to giants, evil gods, and demons. Tai asked about the red spot in the image and what it represented, and Hilda told him that place was called Iron, but it was completely destroyed, and now Team Idun was on the front line, fighting against an enemy trying to destroy the world. Tai asked if what he saw could be Ragnarok, saying he remembered seeing that in one of the games, and Hilda confirmed it, saying it was their responsibility to save Ragnarok, which would determine the world's fate. Hilda added that, more precisely, they were fighting to protect the entire world, and to be honest, it was a fight for survival. Tai wondered if someone could move between different worlds, thinking that maybe he could return to his own world. Just then, Hilda told him they had finally arrived at their destination, saying this was the temple of their goddess, and since he was now a warrior of the goddess, he needed to enter and pay his respects. They entered the temple, walking down a long hallway, and Tai, impressed by the place, asked if he would meet the goddess here. Hilda told him it was, of course, not possible. He will, the goddess, but not in person as her thought, but from afar. Our place was in the Swithens. They arrived at a place at a statue of the goddess, with a tree drawn inside a circle on the ground. Hilda handed Tai an apple and told him to stand at the altar and try to throw the apple there. Tai took the apple, amazed that it was golden, and approached the statue, standing over the drawn tree and throwing the apple, unsure if it would do anything. When the apple fell from hand and landed on the drawn tree split in half. At that moment, the tree and the circle around it lit up with a golden light, and Tai was startled by a bright light so intense he had to cover his eyes. Everything around him changed, and the statue transformed into the goddess Idun, the goddess of life and death, calling out to him, saying he was now her warrior. When Tai opened his eyes, he saw that the tree, once just a drawing on the ground, had become a golden tree, and in front of him, the goddess Idun asked him to come closer. Tai quickly knelt and paid his respects, hearing the goddess say that just as water flows from above to below, the human body is most respectful in a kneeling position. She placed her hands on his head, saying she would grant him blessings. These blessings would protect his body from threats or death. Golden rays emanated from her hands, surrounding Tai, and we learned that she blessed him with the mark of guardian of life and youth. Tai found his entire body glowing with golden light and felt immense power within him. Suddenly light burst from his eyes and mouth as well, and we understood that he now possessed eternal health and youth. Tai, extremely happy, said that all the chronic illnesses he had from his life as a professional gamer, including back pain, hip pain, neck inflammation, indigestion, and other symptoms, had completely disappeared. Idun told him she looked forward to seeing his future achievements. After that, Idun disappeared, and Tai found himself lying on the ground over the drawn tree. Hilda came to him, saying he had now been blessed by the goddess, and explained that Idun was the goddess of immortality and youth, and that he could now endure pain in battle, no matter how deadly. Tai wasn't really focusing on her words and said that Idun Idun was very beautiful. Hilda continued, telling him there was no real chance of dying now since he was blessed with the gift of life, adding that as he aged, his blessings would only grow stronger. She laughed, saying that was why their team was called the Zombie Team. Tae asked if he could return to his world if he defeated all the enemies, thinking it was impressive to say he would defeat all the enemies, and believing that was why her face blushed in admiration. Meanwhile, she thought he was quite cute for believing he could defeat all the enemies and return to his previous place. Hilda then told him that if the war ended as he said, it might happen if they were victorious. So if he wanted to return, he could do so, and she extended her hand to help him up. Tae thought he definitely had to return to his place, wondering what beauty there was in living in such a crazy place. He took her hand to stand up, feeling its warmth and softness, and with her so close, he thought maybe there was something beautiful about this place after all. Tae's imagination began to drift. He imagined they were married, living together, and when he came home after a long day, she would be cooking, waiting for him. When he arrived, she welcomed him, and they sat to eat as she fed him with her hands, and he felt great happiness. As he started chewing, it felt like he was eating a piece of a shoe, and he quickly spat it out, realizing the toughness of the meat snapped him out of his dream. Hilda asked if he was okay, and if the meat was tough, saying they would upgrade once they worked hard. They were in Tae's modest quarters, but Hilda said that if they ranked up, they would get better privileges, better food, and a nicer place. Tae returned to his daydream, seeing Hilda encouraging him to be patient, holding their child while standing by the river. Then a system notification appeared that Tae's delusions had reached a critical level. The next day, Hilda told Tae she would repeat what she had told him, explaining that each time he defeated an enemy, he would win something called a rune. Tae said he now understood why he felt his body absorb energy when he defeated the beast before. Hilda confirmed, saying he likely had several runes and could invest them to gain abilities, making him stronger. Tae said he understood, and looked at a figure showing the abilities he could acquire: physical strength, willpower, endurance, agility, and magic. Tae asked what magic and willpower meant. Hilda explained that magic enhanced his magical attacks and defenses, while willpower improved his mental focus and defenses. Tae said he understood now, and asked if he could enhance his saga with magic. Hilda replied that sagas were unique, and their power increased not only through actions, but also through the number of people who knew and believed in the story. Sometimes sagas could become stronger than reality. Hilda added that lower-ranked warriors' sagas were simple, increasing strength and speed. This was impressive but wasn't a true saga. A true saga was an embodiment of a legend, allowing for diverse effects, like forging weapons, transformation, or even summoning an entire army. She then tells him that there's one thing he must remember well: his ability to summon the power of his saga and make it stronger is entirely up to him. Tae stands and thinks about his story, and at that moment, the legend of the Dragon Knight Karlstad, the hero of the game he used to play, comes to his mind. Suddenly they hear a loud noise as someone rings the giant bell, and Hilda tells him she understands. Now they have orders to deploy. Tae asks if it's happening now. At that moment, a strange gate opens before them with great force, and Tae realizes it's a portal. Hilda tells him to pass through the purple gate, and once he crosses it, he will find the gathering area on the other side. When all the warriors gather, they will all move towards the battlefield. Next, we see Tae wearing a different outfit with a shield on his back, and Hilda is helping him put it on. Tae holds his breath again because she is very close to him. She tells him they are done now and everything is fine, mentioning that the outfit suits him perfectly. He quickly steps away and tells her he's leaving now, but she calls out to him, and Tae looks back at her, still unable to breathe. She tells him to take care of himself and not die. Tae is touched and reassures her, saying that thanks to Idun's blessings, dying has become much harder. Tae then walks confidently, but upon crossing the gate, he's surprised by the large number of warriors and wonders if they're heading into a major battle. Suddenly, a large hand strikes the shield on his back with force, and Tae looks behind him in fear, only to find it's Bjorn. Bjorn tells him they've met again and comments that he looks in better shape than before, then asks if his assigned Valkyrie is beautiful, laughing as he says all Valkyries are beautiful. Bjorn grabs Tae by the shield and pushes him, telling him to head to his team now, since today's battle will be different from yesterday's, and they will have a commander this time. Indeed, we see the commander who will lead the battle, and he looks stern and powerful. Tae stands alone since he is the only one in Team Idun. The commander asks if he belongs to Team Idun, noting how odd he looks standing alone, and orders him to move to the back of the line. Tae feels embarrassed and follows the order. The commander speaks loudly, introducing himself as Ragnall from Team Heimdall, announcing that he will be leading this battle. The goal of the battle is to reclaim the lands taken by Null. Tae stands at the back of the line, unable to see anything because of the giants in front of him. Ragnall continues, stating they will descend onto the battlefield, where the fight is at its fiercest. Ragnall raises his sword and enthusiastically tells the warriors they will fight for Asgard and the 9 realms. Gates open before the rows, ready for them to cross. Ragnall tells them he will lead, and they must follow him. The warriors continue to chant Ragnall's name, calling him the great leader, but Tae still can't see anything. We then transition to the battlefield, a snowy mountainous area. The enemy soldiers have a strange appearance, with red light glowing from their eyes. The warriors who had been there from the beginning waited for Ragnall's group, and upon learning they were about to arrive, they decided to push the enemies back. Suddenly they notice one of the enemies standing on top of a mountain holding something strange that they cannot identify. The creature suddenly leaps from the mountain, carrying a massive hammer, and manages to strike a large number of warriors. The warriors are thrown into the air from the force of the creature's strike with the hammer. This is White Fang, the leader of the enemy army in front of them, and all the warriors are shocked to see this is the enemy leader, especially given his massive size and strength. They comment on how enormous he is, at least 4 or 5 times larger than the others. At that moment, one of the warriors remarks whether they will just keep being surprised or actually do something. Just then, the gate that Ragnall and his warriors are coming through opens behind the creature White. The warriors enter with enthusiasm, but they are stunned as soon as they see the size of White standing before them. White immediately uses the hammer he holds and strikes all the warriors, but the last one to enter the gate is Tae. He sees White in front of him, roaring loudly, striking all the large warriors in front of him, then loudly wonders who the fool was that opened this gate. At that moment, White and Tae are left facing each other. Despite being terrified of White, just like the other warriors, Tae tries to calm himself and tells himself he will think of how to defeat him exactly like he used to defeat the boss in the game. He stands under White's massive hammer, thinking that now he must focus solely on that hammer, because if he takes even one hit from it, he will be dead for sure. He sees the other warriors being torn to pieces around him, looks at the small shield in his hand, and realizes it won't be enough to block the strike. He concludes that, in this situation, the shield is useless, and throws it away. Tae decides to use all the runes he has, which are 5. He knows it's not a lot, but he decides to invest them all in gaining agility. After doing so, he is able to follow the hammer's movement as if it were in slow motion, thinking that now he can actually see it descending towards where he is standing. He moves quickly out from under it, and the other warriors see him and cheer him for dodging the strike. While all the other warriors are being thrown into the air around him, Tae manages to pass under it safely, but after getting past it, he realizes that just dodging the hammer will not help them win the battle. He thinks maybe he should attack White's legs. At that moment, he hears a voice instructing all the warriors to attack White's legs and stop him by targeting his legs. Tae indeed sees all the warriors heading to attack White's legs, but it results only in more casualties being thrown into the air. Tae says he must try something else. He looks at the unstoppable creature raising the hammer to kill more, saying there is only one thing on his mind now. He declares that it has to be this, and nothing else, using the ability Warrior's Mission, the Storm, which was from the Karlstad game, enabling him to move at high speed. However, this time he does not move between enemy lines, but instead ascends upwards. Then, he descends from the great height towards White, and at that moment, while airborne, Tae promises himself that he must survive this battle no matter what. He remembers Hilda telling him to take care of himself and not die, and he longs to see her again. At that moment, Tae recalls Hilda's advice, that summoning the full power of his saga and making it stronger depends solely on him. Tae shouts loudly, stopping the voice in his head that narrates everything, and demands his mind to stop showing flashes of his life as if he is about to die now. The voice responds, saying it's his own fault, then goes silent. Tae then begins to think that the Warrior's Mission, the Storm Saga, only helped him increase his speed previously, and wonders if this time he can elevate it to a higher level instead of just making a vertical leap into the air. The voice in his head comes back to comment again, saying that for the last time, Tae had a bold idea, to strike the air itself with his feet and move faster in the air to reach a greater height. Indeed, Tae manages to do just that. He then descends at a terrifying speed, sword in hand, landing on White's head and inflicting a severe wound. He falls to the ground where the hammer had made a large hole, stands up, and says he almost died, questioning if he's still alive thanks to Idun's blessings. Standing on the ground, he looks at White, who is in great pain, and sees that his sword is lodged in White's eye. At that moment, Tae realizes this is his only chance to end the battle now, and he thinks about needing a weapon. At that moment, the Warrior's Weapon saga activates. Using the storm and the Warrior's Weapon, Tae spins in a spiral motion until he reaches the highest point above White, ultimately defeating him. We then transition to another scene where a woman stands on a high balcony, and a raven flies in and lands behind her. She appears to be playing a game similar to chess, saying it's clear they are the winners. She then turns to the raven and introduces herself as Valkyrie Raskrid, reporting to Odin, but the raven replies that he isn't Odin, and she is reporting to Hugin, the raven. Raskrid sighs and remains silent, and Hugin asks if any of the warriors caught her attention, but Raskrid stays silent. He asks her again if anyone in particular caught her eye, then adds that they are all lower-tier warriors anyway, but Raskrid replies, saying that one person did catch her eye, one who stood against the beast. We return to the battle scene, where Tae stands holding his weapon with both hands, having already defeated the beast, surrounded by warriors celebrating the victory and chanting Odin's name. Tae stands after all the effort, watching people salute him, hearing them chant his name. He thinks about the cheers calling his name, remembering the moments when he won the title of best player and people chanted his name, feeling that these cheers are not unfamiliar to him. He looks at his weapon, thinking it seems familiar, one of the weapons from the game he played. It was one of the rare items, hard to obtain, yet later became common, weaker than what he was used to, much like his current standing. But he thinks that he wants to always hear these cheers afterward, that he wants to grow stronger, to become Tai the Warlord, raising his sword to salute the warriors, thinking he will be the greatest in Valhalla. At that moment, someone comes and places a hand on Tai's shoulder, telling him what he did in the battle was truly amazing. Seeing Tai's expression of annoyance, he asks if Tai thinks his salute to the warriors should have been the dramatic end to this moment. We see that it's Bjorn, who then tells Tai that he's indeed managed to elevate his saga usage. Tai responds, saying it was thanks to Bjorn and Hilda, but Bjorn tells him that summoning the sword from the air is a completely different skill from what he taught him. Tai replies that this is also new to him, adding that now he can summon and dismiss it whenever he wants. Bjorn then tells him they need to move now, and Tai asks if they are returning. Bjorn replies that there's no going back now, pointing to a distant place and telling Tai that their mission is to reclaim that fortress. Until they achieve that, they will stay here, prompting Tai to ask if they will be sleeping in this place. Indeed, we see them setting up tents and spending the night in them. We see Tai in one of the tents, yawning from exhaustion, and later lying on the bed in the tent, saying it had been a very long day and that he can't believe all of this happened in just one day. He then goes silent, reflecting on his strength after everything that has happened, wondering how strong he has become. He raises his hands to see his saga, as Bjorn taught him, and sees the strange, incomprehensible letters before him. However, he sees the translation, just like the first time, stating that his power has now increased to 5% of the immortal warrior's strength. He now possesses 2 sagas, along with 27 lower tier runes and 2 core runes. Tae feels happy with what he sees and says that he is now stronger and has an additional saga, wondering if this means he can use 2 sagas at the same time. But just then, he finds his tent opening, and a warrior calling his name. The warrior tells him someone has come to visit Tae, and Tae is puzzled by the strange smile on the warrior's face. When he steps out of the tent, he finds all the warriors gathered around the tent, giving him the same strange looks, and he doesn't understand why they're acting this way. He is then shocked and understands the reason for their looks when he sees that the visitor is Hilda, standing among the warriors, calling out to him happily as soon as she sees him. We move on to a new scene where we see Hilda sitting on the ground, apologizing to Tae and crying uncontrollably. We flash back 5 minutes earlier to understand the reason for her tears, seeing the two of them entering Tae's tent. Tae is sitting, very confused by Hilda's request to show her all the achievements he's made in his life. He asks her if it is really possible to show her all his achievements at once, and she tells him that if he wants to do it, then it's certainly possible. A document filled with words about countless achievements and feats appears, with a note stating that this isn't everything he has done. Hilda is extremely surprised by the sheer number of these achievements. We return to the scene of Hilda's hysterical crying, as she tells Tae that she treated him arrogantly without knowing he was such a great hero. Tae tries to calm her down, but she continues crying, saying she didn't mean to treat him like that, especially since he is a professional hero, and apologizes for calling him a beginner. Tae keeps trying to comfort her, thinking that she looks very cute even while crying like that, but he needs to explain everything to her. He tells her that all of this was in a game. Hilda yells loudly enough for it to be heard outside the tent. All of this in a game? Tae replies, telling her that he did do these things, but in a virtual world, explaining that it's not a real world. Hilda responds by saying she kind of understands, but also doesn't really get it. She then looks at him and says that despite everything, he did those things, and that it's still amazing in her opinion. Tae looks at her in amazement, not knowing what to say, wondering if esports could be considered real sports. He imagines that if this were true, everyone would want to do it, and if there were military service exemptions for people who played games as if they were physical sports, the world would be even crazier than it is now. He feels it's strange to find comfort in this afterlife world he's currently in. Hilda interrupts his thoughts, telling him they should return to discussing the saga. She explains that generally, there isn't a fixed number of sagas he can use, but she adds that, given his current level, if he creates another saga now, he won't be able to make another one for some time. For that reason, she advises him to think carefully before doing anything impulsively. Tae looks at the available options and considers that he can only use one saga at the moment, wondering what he should do that would benefit him. He thinks that what he has gained so far is in line with Karlstad's power, the storm that grants him great speed, and the warrior's sword that allows him to summon a sword from the air when needed. He concludes that what he needs now is an offensive skill, but then changes his mind, saying that's not what he wants. He decides that the skill he wants now is Dragon Eyes, which allows him to see everything. Suddenly, his eyes light up in blue and he screams, startling Hilda. She asks if he's made his decision, and he tells her he has, that this is the skill he wants. He says his vision has improved and become stronger. He continues, explaining that this ability allows him to see things in front of him, as he saw them in games, in a more simplified way. It enables him to see all the information about the person in front of him. Indeed, he sees Hilda, with all her details written next to her, including her name and the fact that she is a Valkyrie from Team Idun. But then he discovers he can see more than that. He can even see through everything, including clothing. Tae screams in shock, and Hilda asks what happened. She then asks if he's okay, as he looked like his head was about to explode, and it was very frightening. Tae tells her he really almost died, and she says that, generally, she should leave now. Before leaving, she tells him she now knows how amazing he is, that he will become incredibly strong in the future. She hugs him, saying it's wonderful to have such a lucky hero like him in Team Idun. This nearly drives Tae insane, and we see that he was about to explode in the tent. Sometime after Hilda leaves, we see another person approaching Tae's tent. He opens the tent, calls out to Tae, and asks if he's there. We see Tae wearing a helmet on his head, replying and asking if there is something he wants. The person introduces himself as Rolf from Team Olar, and he seems puzzled by Tae's behavior. Rolf then says that he is a warrior from Unit Siri, which will join Ragnall's unit, and that all the warriors will gather at Siri's unit's location, which is why he has come to take Tae there. At that moment, Tae decides to use the Dragon Eyes skill, and sees information about Rolf, realizing that this is indeed his name, and that he is known as the Wolf Hunter. However, he also sees details he shouldn't be seeing. He quickly turns his face and commands the skill to stop, thinking he should disable it when he doesn't need it, while Rolf stands there, confused by his actions. Tae walks with Rolf towards the gathering place, and Rolf tells him he is envious of having a Valkyrie visit him. He adds that he admires and envies him, saying that if he were in Tae's place, he would be bragging about the Valkyrie visit all the time. Tae feels very happy hearing this. Tae thinks it's like having a celebrity visit him personally, a nice perk of being in Team Idun. He then asks Rolf what the benefits of Team Uller are anyway. Rolf replies that they can either become invisible or track their targets, and says Tae can choose one of these abilities initially, and later he could acquire both. When Tae sees Rolf disappearing, he instantly chooses invisibility as the skill he wants now, thinking that it's truly an amazing ability. Rolf explains that tracking means the ability to find any enemy, even if the trail is very faint. We then see them arrive at the camp of Team Uller. They reach the leader of Unit Siri, and Rolf informs the leader that he has brought Tae. At that moment, Tae can't believe his eyes when he sees the leader, because the leader is a woman. Tae thinks it's the first time he's seen a woman in Valhalla who isn't a Valkyrie. The leader introduces herself, standing up, and tells Tae that he was the one who defeated the giant Null today, which is the name of the creature White, and says she's glad to meet him. Tae is even more shocked by the terrifying aura he sees around leader Siri, realizing it's more frightening and powerful than all the other warriors he's seen here. Then Siri tells him that their supreme commander will arrive shortly, and asks him to stand in place, and Tae does as she says. Using his Dragon Eyes skill, Tae sees that her name is Siri, and she's known as the Hunter of Men, realizing she's a very powerful and strict figure. After a while, a light appears in the sky like a star approaching, and the warriors think it's a Valkyrie, but it turns out to be Raskrid. Tae looks at her and is amazed, recognizing her as Raskrid from Team Odin. He watches her land and thinks about the meaning of Raskrid's known title, Princess of Ice, wondering if the warriors gave her that name. Raskrid stands before them and introduces herself, saying saying she's the commander responsible for this group, adding that, as they all know, Commander Ragnall is dead, so his unit has been merged with Unit Ciri. She then looks at Ciri, telling her she'll rely on her in this mission and to take care of the warriors under her command. Ciri responds that she is at her service and will carry out the orders with determination. Raskrid then takes out a document, reads from it, and says that she has seen all their accomplishments in the recent period and will reward the warriors who made significant contributions in the battle. At that moment, Tay is surprised to hear her call out his name as Warrior Tay, adding that he alone managed to defeat the giant Nul, the leader of Unit Nul, and that she will reward him with a bag full of gold coins, 1 rune, and also 10 points for his team, Team Idun. Tai feels extremely happy, but restrains himself from even smiling, thinking that he has now become famous here as well, now known as Tai who defeated the giant Nul. Suddenly he hears the warriors talking amongst themselves, saying that he's the one visited by a Valkyrie, which makes him feel very irritated, especially when he hears them discussing how amazing it was and how jealous they are because Hilda visited him. Tai can't believe that they consider the Valkyrie visit more important than his defeat of the giant, the leader of the monsters. But Raskrid tells all the warriors to calm down and be silent, informing them that the battle to reclaim the fortress will be tomorrow afternoon. She tells them they will use the Iron Rain plan tomorrow, and that all the warriors present will be part of it. At that moment, all the warriors cheer in excitement for the Iron Rain plan, while Tay stands among them, not understanding anything, wondering what exactly this Iron Rain is. Tay then asks Rolf, who stands beside him, what Iron Rain is. Rolf, who is cheering along with the warriors, responds that he doesn't know either. We switch to a new scene the following day, where Raskrid is flying in the air. She gives the order to begin the attack, and the warriors rush forward to attack the fortress upon her signal. We see that they have towers with archers, as well as strangely shaped equipment accompanying the foot soldiers. At the same time, the enemy spots them advancing toward the fortress, and a giant creature resembling White, the one Tai defeated earlier, appears. This creature is called Red Eye, and the warriors begin their attack on the enemy's army. Ciri explains to the warriors that Raskrid's plan resembles a game of chess, telling them that when they attack the fortress, the enemy army Nul will engage them in front of the fortress wall. While the enemy is occupied, Unit Ciri will scale the wall to open the gate for the rest of the warriors. She adds that in order to open the gate, they must reach the control rooms. Rolf explains that they will use Iron Rain to get over the wall, and Tay thinks Rolf is speaking as if he understands everything, though he actually knows nothing. Tay wonders again what Iron Rain could be, and whether it might be some magic that suddenly transports them inside. We then see Tay sitting, shocked, inside an iron cage, realizing this is the Iron Rain. It's a large barrel that the warriors sit inside, surrounded by metal barriers for safety. Rolf asks Tai if he's not excited, and Tai replies that he's definitely not excited at all. Tai hears the warrior beside him cheer, saying he's coming to Valhalla, and Tay, confused, responds that they are already in Valhalla. The horn for the start is blown, and the assault operation is announced. The barrel containing Tai and his companions starts moving, and Tay finds it unbearable, feeling like he needs help. We understand that the barrels were placed inside a large cannon, and the barrel is fired like a projectile towards the fortress. Some warriors are terrified inside the barrel from the force, while others are excited for the battle. The barrels land inside the fortress, shattering, and the warriors emerge, aching from the shock of the impact. Some have back pain, while others have bitten their tongues. But Tay is just happy he's still alive after what happened. Ciri is with them and tells them to get ready because the enemy is approaching. The warriors are surprised by the presence of a huge creature with large claws in front of them. We then see that they are enormous insects, with large numbers surrounding them from all sides. Ciri tells them that these giant insects move in groups of 5, and that if they kill the group leader, the other insects become confused and stop moving. But Rolf says that they all look alike, and they won't be able to distinguish the leader among them. Tay responds that they need to focus, and decides to use the Dragon Eyes skill to identify the leader among the insects. He identifies the leader and informs Ciri, telling her that he possesses a saga that grants him this ability. Ciri moves quickly, standing directly in front of the leader with her bow, asking Tay to point out the leader insect with his finger, and giving the order for all the warriors to aim at the same target. Tay then understands what Ciri's plan is. He starts pointing at one of the insects, the fast leader insect, then points to the beautiful leader insect, and afterward to the famous leader insect. Each time the warriors attack the insect Tay points at, successfully eliminating them. Ciri stands in front of him the entire time, giving commands to the warriors, until they manage to take down the leader insects one by one. The rest of the insects start leaving them alone and moving away. But at that moment, they hear the enemy blowing a horn, announcing the start of a new attack against them. They see a large number of the enemy forces advancing towards them. Ciri tells Rolf that they will now split into 2 groups. She and her group will handle this attack, while he should take a group of warriors and head to the control room. Rolf salutes her, saying he understands and will execute it, and Ciri tells him to take Tai with him, looking at Tai and telling him she is relying on him for this task. Tai looks at her seriously and salutes. The members of the separate team gather, totaling 4. As they prepare to move, Rolf places his hand on Tai, telling him to stay close. We understand why when we see the other 3 using the invisibility skill that Tay has not yet obtained, and staying with Rolf allows him to hide alongside him. They leave the battlefield and proceed on their way to find the control room. We hear Rolf saying that he knows the map of the place, and that there should be a hidden passageway here. He places his hand on a stone in the wall in front of him, and indeed a passage opens, revealing stairs leading downward. He says this is a temporary route to the control room. They enter the passage, which is very dark, so Rolf carries a torch to light the way. As Tai walks, he suddenly finds himself caught in large spider webs and screams. He pulls the webs off his hands and face, wondering why the place is so full of spider webs. Looking around, he deduces that the place hasn't been used for a long time. They continue their journey, with Tay bringing up the rear, and then we see something resembling a giant insect watching them from the ceiling of the passage. A large and frightening spider is directly above them, and Rolf tells everyone to be careful as they walk. Tay and the warriors hear his words and follow his advice, but suddenly they hear the sound sound of the giant insect. Tai looks up and sees the spider snatching one of them in its jaws. He quickly tells Rolf and the remaining warrior to look up, and Rolf comments that it's a strange spider, while the other warrior identifies it as a wolf spider, noting how massive it is. Rolf watches as the spider devours their companion, saying that it must be very hungry to swallow their comrade so quickly, and that there's no point in trying to save him now. At that moment, Tay, using his dragon eyes skill, sees more spiders and quickly informs Rolf. They are indeed numerous, surrounding them from every direction. Tay stands to think, telling himself he must stay calm and figure out these spiders' weakness. With dragon eyes, he learns that they paralyze their prey with venom, and their weakness is fire. Tay decides to activate his saga and use the warrior's sword skill. Rolf is shocked when a sword suddenly appears in Tay's hand. Tay throws the sword forcefully towards the highest point on the ceiling, and it reaches the spot where the spiders are. Then, Tay activates a skill called Rune Fang Effect, which ignites the sword, setting the ceiling ablaze and burning the spiders. Tay shouts for Rolf and the other warrior to run and take advantage of the opportunity. Both run behind him, and Rolf asks if Tay is a mage, while the other warrior wonders if they are just going to leave the sword behind, but Tay tells him he can always make another. Tai continues using dragon eyes, guiding them as if they were in a video game, until they reach a door. Rolf says all they need to do now is get through the door. Rolf moves to the door and tells them to hurry inside, and Tay runs in. The third warrior also arrives, and Rolf tells him to close the door, but he fails to close the door, and at that moment, one of the spiders attacks and manages to get inside. Now, the three of them and the spider are in the room together. Rolf and the other warrior rush to close the door, while Tay draws his sword to face the spider that entered with them. They manage to shut the door with great difficulty, and Tay successfully defeats the spider, then sits down to catch his breath, while they also stand by the door to do the same. Tay then looks around the room, Zakzak, and asks Rolf if this is really the control room. They head to the center, and Rolf says that it is. More precisely, it's the emergency control room. They reach the room's center, and Rolf states that this is the second hidden control room inside the fortress. Tay thinks that this must be why it was so hard to get to, and since it's hidden, there are no guards here. Rolf says they need to complete their task quickly, then takes a circular key from his clothes, inserts it into its slot, and says they must open the gate quickly to minimize their force's losses. At that moment, light emits from the central device, and they hear a voice saying that the emergency control key has been recognized. They see a beautiful girl descend from above, who introduces herself as Black Castle, and asks them what they need. Rolf and the other warrior just stare at her in silence, so Tay tells Rolf that he was in a hurry just moments ago. Rolf snaps out of it and asks Black Castle to open the gate, but she responds that she will comply, starting to open the door behind which are the spiders. Rolf quickly stops her, saying that's not the gate he meant, but the fortress gate. He then takes a deep breath and says the mission is successfully completed, and now they will wait in this place until their forces take control of the fortress. He looks at Tay, saying that they have some time now, so they can talk with this girl, but Tay looks toward the door, saying someone is approaching the control room they're in, and they must prepare for battle. It turns out the giant monster is indeed approaching from the outside. Tay, frightened, wonders if anything could get through that thick metal door, and Rolf, equally nervous, adds that there are a lot of spiders out there. But then Tai says that whoever is outside has taken out all the spiders. Indeed, the giant monster enters the control room. Tay recognizes the creature as Red Eye, and it's evident that Red Eye is extremely angry. Red Eye stands before them, cursing them and threatening to tear them all apart, leaving the three of them terrified. Tay then activates the warrior's sword saga, thinking of Hedda, and the three of them launch an attack against Red Eye together. However, Red Eye moves and spins his hammer with incredible force, striking the warrior alongside Tay and Rolf, sending the warrior flying through the air and crashing into the wall, breaking it. At that moment, Red Eye wonders about the smaller warrior, asking himself where he went. We see Tay using the storm saga, coming down from above with his sword aimed at Red Eye, but the monster spots him and drops the hammer, releasing his claws. As Tay gets closer, he is shocked to see that the monster was ready and waiting for him. Just before Tay can strike the monster, Red Eye leaps up, grabs Tay, and slams him forcefully into the ground, using a move called Gravedigger. Rolf witnesses it all, screaming for Tay in fear, but Tay lies there on the shattered ground, his condition unknown. Rolf keeps calling for Tay, but there's no response from him. We then move to a new scene where Tay is flying in the sky, asking himself what this beautiful feeling is. He opens his eyes to see a bright light, and says that this must be what death feels like. He remembers the moment the giant monster was about to crush him under its massive foot, and thinks that this wasn't supposed to happen now, but it seems like he really is about to die. Back in the control room, we see Rolf holding his bow, with an arrow on fire. He uses his saga to set the Red Eye monster on fire, and indeed, the flames engulf the beast. Rolf stands and calls out to Tay, urging him to hang in there a little longer, visibly saddened by his companion Tay's state. But Red Eye glares at Rolf, cursing and vowing to kill him. In that moment, Red Eye hesitates, trying to decide who to finish off first. Should he start with the annoying archer Rolf, or end Tay's life as he lies before him? Tay, nearly lifeless on the ground, notices the hesitation and decides to pretend to be dead. Seeing this, Red Eye chooses to start with Rolf and finish off Tay later. But as Rolf sees the monster charging at him, he decides to do what he can, preparing his arrows to fire. Meanwhile, Tay gets up from the ground, positioning himself behind the monster heading toward Rolf without being noticed. Tay feels immense pain, thinking he could have truly died, but he encourages himself, saying he's still alive. He then uses the Storm Saga to rush quickly toward the monster, piercing through its body and reaching Rolf, who stands in disbelief at what's happening, with a strange expression on his face. We understand why when we see the monster's body parts flying through the air around them. Red Eye screams in agony, then collapses to the ground before Rolf and Tay. Tay finds himself barely able to process what's happened, while the other warrior also can't believe what he sees. Rolf then speaks to Tay, telling him they should now end Red Eye's suffering and put the beast out of its misery. The giant monster is seen in utter shock, crying out in extreme pain. Before killing him, Tay apologizes for what he has done, then activates the warrior's sword saga, preparing to use his sword to kill the giant monster. But he is suddenly surprised by something strange happening. Tay discovers he has gained a new saga and an additional skill called Skull Crusher, and finds a massive metal hammer in his hand. With a victorious shout, Tay brings the hammer down on the monster's head, ending its life immediately. Afterward, Tay stands exhausted, with Rolf and the other warrior around him. Rolf stands, unable to grasp what just happened, while the warrior cheers for Iden, amazed by Tai's abilities. Rolf and the warrior continue jumping and shouting Eden's name in celebration. Tay is then surprised to learn that his level has increased, and now he has achieved a synchronization rate of 7% with Karlstad. His astonishment grows when he hears that the siege of the Black Castle has ended in victory for Valhalla's warriors. Rolf and the warrior leap toward Tay, embracing him and celebrating their victory over the entire Null army. Thus ends Red Eye, the leader of the enemy army. We move to a new scene where we see one of the warriors holding the head of the Red Eye monster, announcing their victory in the name of Thor. We learn that this monster was the last leader of the Null enemy faction, and the warrior from Thor's team is named Prachi, who claims he was the one who defeated it. At the same time, we see the raven that was talking to Razgrid flying over the warriors, thinking that Razgrid is now less interested in the powerful warrior Prachi and more focused on the young warrior named Tai. We see Rolf carrying Tai on his shoulders, with all the warriors celebrating Tai's achievement. Then we see the Valkyrie announcing the celebration for the warriors, saying they deserve this day. The warriors are all joyful and enjoying themselves, while Tai sits alone on the wall, away from everyone. He sits alone, gazing at the sky, when he hears Rolf asking if he's okay. Tai replies that he's in a lot of pain, but Rolf tells him he's lucky to be alive, admitting that he was very worried when he saw him fall. At that moment, they hear Siri asking if she can join them for a bit. Siri continues, saying that what their small group did in the control room today was great, and she asks if they would accept a drink from her as a token of appreciation. Rolf immediately responds that it would be a great honor, adding that he's long wished to share a drink with her, while Tay looks at him in surprise at his reaction. However, Rolf's joy is cut short as other warriors gather around, asking to drink with Siri too. Siri begins drinking, toasting to Valhalla, and the warriors drink, toasting to Siri as well, while Rolf stands there clearly frustrated with the situation. Meanwhile, Tai quietly observes everything unfolding. He watches Siri interacting with the warriors around her, thinking that he once believed she was cold and emotionless. We then see Rolf standing with the other warriors, explaining in detail how Tay fought the spiders and defeated the Red Eye monster, leaving the warriors stunned and deeply impressed by the story. Tay looks over at Siri, who stands laughing, her face flushed with laughter, and thinks that she too knows how to laugh like this.